Hey everybody, how you doing today? Mark here. Good to see your smiling faces. It's been a little while. And the reason for that is last week was AWS reInvent 2018 in Las Vegas. It was the biggest conference in cloud. It's the biggest reInvent yet. Over 50,000 builders descended on Las Vegas for a week of learning, of announcements, of networking, just a generally fantastic time. Now, I've been sort of processing since reInvent because there was a record number of announcements, again, features, functionality, new services that AWS just kind of dumps on the community. And it's wonderful. It's absolutely fantastic. But it's a lot to take in. And that's what I wanted to talk to you about today, not the reInvent announcements. If you want to follow those, go to my Medium page. So just look for Mark NCA on medium.com and you'll see a bunch of summaries there. And of course, you can follow me on Twitter and I'll tweet all those out as they get published throughout the week. What I wanted to talk to you about was actually the perspectives on those information. So it's interesting is as a community hero, as a longtime cloud builder, as a security professional, I sit and listen to these announcements and I hear a certain angle on it, right? By default, this is sort of my perspective. And I go, oh, okay, you can use it in this manner, in this manner, in this manner. But I talked to other people throughout the week and they had completely different interpretations of some of the things. Now, not of the technologies, but of how they're going to be using those technologies. And it was a real reminder that communicating a message and communicating intent can be really tricky. And as a follow-up to that, not just communicating intent, but how people take something you've built, especially if you're building a set of primitives or building blocks like AWS does, and what they do with that is a completely different cause. And I think that happens all the time in securities, mainly because people lack the context to make a proper decision or to understand what's happening or why it's happening. But I think the point is relevant, is that we have this challenge. So if you roll out something like multi-factor authentication, normally you're going to say, hey, this is going to make you more secure. Please take the time to complete the enrollment and start using multi-factor authentication for all of your key passwords. Maybe you mandate it so they can't log in without it, something like that. And that'll probably be relatively successful. But I would ask the key question is, after that effort, after you have multi-factor rolled out to all your team members, to your organization, do they understand why? You said it was to make things more secure. Sure, they can regurgitate that back to you and say, oh, it makes things more secure. But do they understand how or why it does that? And I think that's a great example of an opportunity to inform, to educate, and to teach, and to help expand people's security perspective. And the challenge I saw last week at reInvent was because these announcements were just coming, super, super fast, and all of them were crazy and amazing, and you kept going like, "Ooh, wow, squirrel, squirrel, squirrel." It made it really hard to kind of push a perspective or to push some guidance. And it was interesting because one of those announcements was the well-architected tool, which is designed exactly to do that, to help people understand how to build within AWS. And if you're at the point where you need to build a tool to help people understand how to build with the other tools, I think that talks to a communication issue, that talks to an audience fracturing, and at AWS's scale, that's totally understandable and it's totally normal. The problem is I see that at much smaller organizations. So much smaller organizations have that same fracturing problem or that same communications problem because they're not teaching context. So if we go back to that MFA example, if you're going to roll out MFA to your organization, you absolutely should. It's a critical thing. But let users know. Just say, look, there's a risk of password reuse. We don't recommend you reuse passwords, and we really hope you're pushing towards passphrases. But adding this multi-factor authentication adds about a second or two to your login experience. But what it does for the attackers is it puts a significant barrier to entry for them. So in case they did hack your password and they've got your username, adding multi-factor for that extra second or two it takes you in the morning to log in makes a significant barrier for the criminals, because now they need to hack every individual user's multi-factor. They need to time that multi-factor because it refreshes every 30 seconds or 60 seconds. It really sets a huge obstacle in the way of attackers. That's why we ask you to sacrifice a second or two in the morning to log in using this additional factor. Communicating it in that manner, I think, is far more effective, and people go, oh, that's the context. Okay, so yeah, it's a little bump for me in the morning, but look at how much harder it makes attackers' jobs, right? Attackers' attempts to hack our company. So I think that's a really key point, is if you're communicating something, communicating context, communicating in a relatable way, and helping people align with the perspective that you intend as the deployment or as the builder, as the person setting up that system. I think that's critical, and that's how I'm continuing to approach my reInvent coverage, looking back at the announcements around machine learning, around Lambda and serverless, the lack of container announcements, around security, around all this stuff. I'm trying to help that perspective and provide my viewpoint and share that out with the audience. So look for more from me on Medium at MarkNCA from reInvent, but also take that thought away. If you're setting up something, especially as you're leading into the new year, or if you have a holiday push around security, try to add that context. Take that extra moment to explain to people, because it really does make a world of difference. What do you think? Let me know. Hit me up online at MarkNCA, and for those of you in the vlogs, on the comment down below. And as always, by email, me at markn.ca. I hope you're having a fantastic day. I hope you have had a fantastic past week and a half. I'm glad to be back in the air with you. I look forward to talking to you online and on the show tomorrow.